the link as well. Now, if you want to call in to tell us what's on your plate today, the number to do so, it is 452-3046. Again, 452-3046. As well as our WhatsApp number, that is 724-0008. You can call in, or you can also message in on WhatsApp. And again, that number is 724-0008. Now, a bit of history for today. In the year 164 BC, before Christ, during the Maccabean revolt, Judas Maccabeus recaptured Jerusalem and rededicated the Second Temple, commemorating, and this is in fact commemorated as the Jewish festival of Hanukkah. In the year 1818, on this day, Russia's Tsar Alexander I petitioned for a Jewish state in Palestine. 1906, on this day, saw China prohibiting the opium trade. 1970 saw General Hafez al-Assad becoming Prime Minister of Syria following a military coup. 1971, on this day, the Battle of Garipur saw Indian troops aided by the Mukti Bahini, Bengali warriors, defeating the army of Pakistan. And in 2017, on this day, Robert Mugabe resigned after 37 years in power in Zimbabwe. And he was, of course, the independence leader of Zimbabwe. And that happened during Zimbabwe's parliament impeachment proceedings in that year. And we now move on to our dish of the day. The daily dish is brought with the kind compliments of our good friends at Tiles Plus.
One tiles for your home, I see. Bathroom, kitchen, pantry. Need tiles for your balcony. Come down to Tiles Plus, satisfaction guarantee. Tiles Plus, Tiles Plus, Tiles Plus. Big tiles with one big table cost. Customer service, A plus, tip, all kind of tiles. Come down to Tiles Plus. We also got gasway and vanity. Books, doors, you'll see. Come down, don't mind nobody. We got the best tiles on island. Trust me. We are located Lance Road in Castries. Bosses, you Brazilians, and Slack Street in Beaufort. Telephone number 453-7939. Tiles Plus.
Serving now, the Daily Dish.
And welcome back to our program here at the Lunchroom on Radio Caribbean International. And of course, we're counting down the days now to Christmas, and lots of events are on the horizon, which of course have become part of the annual calendar around this time. Of course, no doubt it is a more welcome period, especially for the economy that is tied towards the cruise sector. And a number of cruise ships, of course, have been coming in and berthing at Castries Harbour. And, of course, that is to hopefully the benefit of many individuals, like including, of course, persons who are engaged in taxi operations and charters and catamaran tours and a whole host of various tours. And, of course, vendors and shop owners and duty-free providers. A number of individuals, of course, and parts of the economy are certainly geared towards that aspect of the maritime sector. Another one, which certainly kicked off just recently, and that is within the yachting subsector, that of the Atlantic Rally for Cruisers. It's been happening as St. Lucia being the end point of this event for a good number of years now, in particular the Rodney Bay Marina. And of course, quite a lot has been done in those years to ensure that there is a bigger recognition of this. Of course, they kicked off at in the Canary Islands, Gran Canaria, and they are hoping, of course, to get here in the not too distant future. 253 boats, and I believe nearly 1,300 people on board of those vessels. And the age range is from as young as 8 months to as old as 89 coming across the Atlantic. And so certainly this World Cruising Club event has certainly been a staple for us here in terms of getting that big boost in our December arrivals. A number of people who, of course, are coming, and they'll be spending an extended stay in the Caribbean, and hopefully that, of course, will be to the benefit again of the the tourism sector and individuals who are, of course, part of that. Now, over in Israel, of course, in our history of today, we made note of that very famous Maccabean revolt, and of course the creation of the Hasmonean dynasty, which very many scholars and researchers are now pointing out as sort of the birth point of Judaism as we actually know it and understand it today, with a number of the traditions that existed actually being fermented within that period of time in the lead up to what we now term the birth of Christ, and that period somewhere between 4 BC and 6 AD. And the whole concept of Judaism became a lot more defined in terms of the rules and a number of the various festivals, and of course one of them being marked today, that one of Hanukkah, which of course continues to this very day. And of course, while we look at that aspect of history, right now ongoing in Israel is the continuing situation with respect to warfare, excuse me, and the attempts by the Israeli forces, the Israeli Defense Forces, to be able to control more of Gaza. And the hope, of course, one of the rationales that has been given to this entire incursion and attack on Gaza has been that of the 259 or so, 239, sorry, persons who were abducted during that attack, which occurred back on October the 7th, sorry. And of course, today there is in fact a hope that there may be a hostage deal on the horizon, and it is in fact dominating a lot of the news at the moment, with the continued meeting of the Israeli War Cabinet. And it appears that there is some negotiation ongoing, with the hope that about 50 or so hostages, women and children, will in fact be released. And some of these hostages are as young as 3 years old. And so certainly that effort is still at play. And the hope, of course, is that the release of these hostages would then allow for a pause in the fighting which is continuing in Gaza at the moment. And we'll have to wait and see how this, of course, pans out. But of course, the overall humanitarian situation in Gaza has clearly been indicated as being very, very severe. The death toll has now gone over 13,000, with over 30,000 people also wounded, thousands and thousands of people missing. Their families have no idea where they have ended up, and of course quite possibly feared dead at this point in time. And unfortunately, in addition to this, nearly 1.7 million people internally displaced within Gaza, no longer sleeping in their beds, no longer in their homes, but having to seek refuge in other parts of Gaza, more towards the south. And the indication as well is that Israel and the IDF is planning on expanding that region in which they want to control. It's effectively an operation of trying to sweep through an area, determining that that area has been secure, determining that they can have control of it, and then potentially, perhaps, allowing some people to return. But the question is, what could they be returning to? The extent of devastation that we are witnessing in Gaza is something that they have not witnessed before. And it is, in as much as this is a region that has experienced significant warfare, the sheer extent of damage is astounding. And even though there have been many appeals, even from allies of Israel, including the United States and the United Kingdom, the efforts thus far have really not really kept back from the extensive destruction that is ongoing. Operation Swords of Iron ongoing in the Gaza Strip. That's our dish of the day. When we come back, we'll be taking in your calls.
This has been The Daily Dish.
One tiles for your home, I see. Bathroom, kitchen, pantry. Need tiles for your balcony. Come down to Tiles Plus, satisfaction guarantee. Tiles Plus, Tiles Plus, Tiles Plus. Big tiles with unbeatable cost. Customer service, A plus tip. All kind of tiles come down to Tiles Plus. Plus a black gasway and vanity. Books, doors, you'll see. Come down to my nobody. Look at the best tiles on island. Trust me. We are located Land Street in Castries, Bosses, Grizzlies, and Flag Street in Viewfort. Telephone number 453-7939. Tiles Plus.
And welcome back to the Lunchroom here at Radio Caribbean International. And of course, the number to call in, it is 452-3046. Again, 452-3046. And you can also message in. You can also call in via WhatsApp number. That is 724-0008. Ongoing right now in St. Lucia's Parliament building is the continued debate, and this is happening in the lower house, House of Assembly, as Parliament is meeting this week. And, of course, some indications of some hope for of relief for individuals who are hoping to get their tax refunds. Note coming from the Prime Minister indicating that there is likely to be some relief before Christmas, and a bit of a payout there for individuals looking towards getting their tax refunds. Now, of course, also dominating the airwaves, the matter of the long-awaited special prosecutor. And, of course, we have heard quite a lot of back and forth on the matter. It has certainly been a highly politically charged issue, and, of course, new legislation was brought in to allow for this new position, that of a special prosecutor, to look into, to investigate matters regarding corruption, and particularly matters where that corruption is being driven from the top by individuals in public office. Now, of course, we do have some provision, of course, within our Constitution that deals with matters of corruption, and institutions such as the Integrity Commission, for many years labeled as toothless tigers, or maybe even something even more benign than that, and because they certainly have not been able to have the resources to investigate. Quite often suggestions that even the requirements by politicians and persons holding high office, including permanent secretaries, that those individuals do not always submit their various returns and declarations that they are expected to do on a regular basis. And of course, the issue of corruption has been front and center within the aura, the space of St. Lucian politics for many years now, with various accusations and from all different levels. And of course, we have not really seen that much action, although I would say that of late, in the past couple of years, there has actually been some efforts in dealing with issues of money laundering, and of course, a tightening of these matters at the level of the United States and international agencies in looking at the issue of money laundering and the influence of money in this whole matter of governance. And in fact, one of the points that had been made quite recently in this whole matter of individuals and whether individuals should be born in a country for them to be able to hold office was the issue of how money can influence politics and how you can, in fact, have external influence of politics. Now, we've seen that happen very much in U.S. politics of late, and we've heard of the issues of Russian interference. We've heard of the use of mind-bending technologies such as Cambridge Analytica and the power that actually is used to manipulate things in terms of people's patterns, studying there and analyzing what they like and how you can actually convince somebody accordingly using effective social media AI. And a lot of that has been going on. And of course, we've been seeing these entities for hire. And of course, the big question is that even in this midst of this rise in the use of things like passports for sale or passports that can be had at a price, that is there a possibility that you could actually have somebody who is a passport holder and whom, of course, may want to contest elections right here in St. Lucia. Now, we've seen, and some people may think it may be far-fetched, but we've seen the influence of individuals who have lots of resources and how they can quite often even take control of states on the basis of having enough resources at their disposal to be able to influence sufficient numbers of people to take control. And we've heard of in the past the matter of banana republics, of investors coming in and being able to strongly influence the decision making at various levels. And that is part of the challenge of governance, this whole matter of wealth and the wealth being used to determine what the policies are, and persons who may not necessarily have the best interest of the whole being the ones who are in fact making the decisions, because they can effectively pocket politicians. And of course, we have seen other issues of corruption in terms of the matter of contracts and the ensuring that contracts are well valued, that the country is getting value for money. We've seen issues of ghost projects in the past, contracts being issued for projects and for works which may have already been done, and so there's a doubling up of the cost of what is actually being provided to the public, and a whole host of other forms of corruption, from graft to downright stealing. And we, of course, have had that dominating the politics, especially in the last general election, and the call for having something done in the first instance to ensure that an example is made, I suppose, of individuals who have been engaging in that type of practice, that there's been a call for some action in this regard, that people should be held accountable for their actions. And if in fact they have been engaged in stealing, siphoning from the public purse, or mismanaging to the extent of being reckless with the public purse, that some actions are taken. So the government of St. Lucia has finally announced the matter of the appointment of the that position, and it has been styled as a special prosecutor. And the individual who is in fact taking up that position is Mr. Robert Innocent. He comes with nearly 3 decades of judicial experience, according to that press release. And he has also served in offices such as the Office of the Director of Public Prosecutions, as well as the magistracy, and in private practice as well. So, of course, lots of expectations there being placed upon the shoulders of the special prosecutor. And, of course, that position was appointed through the Judicial and Legal Services Commission under the Special Prosecutor Act, which had been passed not too long ago. As to whether there will in fact be sufficient time for the special prosecutor to be able to get to work, and to in fact be able to continue his work regardless of whichever government is in power, we'll have to wait and see how that pans out. Of course, there is the expectation that information would have to be put to him, and of course that information would have to be credible and investigated and deemed that in fact it is worthy of investigation. And potentially the question is, of course, what laws were broken, who broke those laws, and of course part of the challenge with dealing with these matters, they involve money, they involve tracing of money, they involve transactions, they involve having to do significant amount of investigation that is time consuming, that is not always readily available, because that's part of the challenge that you actually have. And this is where you hear of matters such as accounts being set up in foreign countries, and individuals hold those accounts, and these are confidential quite often. It's very difficult to get information about these matters. They will quite often require some form of treaty establishment between the various territories in question for the sharing of information. And that's really where it becomes very difficult in the work of this individual who has been selected, appointed to be that special prosecutor. Being able to trace these things will require a considerable amount of cooperation. We saw that recently in that entire matter that had come out through a request that had been made to the U.S. authorities, to the Justice Department, in the matter of and the Attorney General of St. Lucia asking for information through that Mutual Legal Assistance Treaty, that MLAT, to be able to gain information in this regard. So lots of work there, no doubt, to be able to see how then these cases can be built. Of course, there are some instances where there may be very clear question marks, and we will have to see how those matters pan out. Some of them are already in the courts for that matter. And we, of course, look to this issue of the $7.2 million, which had in fact been paid to a company for the purpose of obtaining vaccines. And that has drawn lots of question marks. Of course, that entire deal seems to have not worked out. And now attempts by the individual who was contracted to be able to try to get part of the payment back, a lot of that is ongoing, even up to this day. And we will have to wait and see how that can also pan out. But the reality is, for all intents and purposes, the country is out of pocket by over $7 million. Part of it paid back, but still a significant amount yet outstanding. So let's hope that we can see some efforts there in addressing these many question marks which have been put out there in the public domain for many a time. But that said, Mr. Innocent and the special prosecutor is and can only ever be part of the solution. And of course, it therefore means that there has to be a commitment towards looking at the system that we have. Not to say that there's ever a perfect system, because that certainly does not exist, but to see how a more perfect system can be achieved, or to see how a better system can be achieved, to see how the laws that exist are up to date, are going to hold individuals accountable, are in fact going to have necessary actions or punishments or punitive measures within them built in, so that people will know what are the consequences for many of these actions that are committed by public officers and others, politicians, who have in fact committed some wrong. And that, of course, is a major issue. The issue still outstanding, of course, of better auditing, the issue of forensic auditing, the issue of inspectorates, if you like, which provide the opportunity for assessing good value for money. Many of those things we have heard over the years, appeals for whether it may be contractors general, whether it may be inspectors general, whether it may be a stronger office of the director of audit, whether it may be the need for new legislation to deal with freedom of information. That, of course, is a major issue. It continues to be a major battle of debate. We're always speculating as to what is signed and what is not signed, who signed what. And a lot of these things are out there and in the dark. The public is largely in the dark on this. And until we look at this system and ensure that we can get a better and more accountable system of governance, then we are still going to be spinning top in mud. Now, we're due to take in our weather report at this time, and I think that is brought to you through the St. Lucia Met Services, so we'll take that in right now.
Make your home merry and bright with Island Style's massive Christmas sale. Our wide range of porcelain and ceramic tiles are on sale up to 50% off. And that's not all. Save up to 15% off. Bathrooms with bundle and save. The more you buy, the more you save. On gorgeous bathroom vanities, bathtubs, faucets, shower glass, toilets, and more. Plus, contractors and tilers are in for a treat with our special discounts on tiling tools and accessories. Sale on now at all locations: Castries, Rodney Bay, and Viewfort. Or call 450-452 or 453-TILE. It's time to deck the halls, deck the walls, or even deck the deck with huge Christmas savings only at Island Style.
This is Radio Caribbean International. It's now time for the weather news.
And that's what, of course, so the 1.1 is now time for your weather report as of 12 noon today, presented by Island Style Talent Bath. The forecast for St. Lucia Valley for the next 24 hours. Winds will be blowing between the east and east-northeast near 14 miles per hour or 22 kilometers per hour, becoming lighter at times. The weather is generally fair and hazy. There is an advisory in here which reads persons with respiratory ailments and dust allergies are advised to take the necessary precautions. The forecast for the Les Antilles, partly cloudy to cloudy with some scattered showers over the northern Leeward and southern Windward Islands and areas further south. Elsewhere, fair to partly cloudy and hazy with a few isolated showers. And the tropical weather outlook, the Atlantic high pressure system will continue to generate light to moderate easterly winds across the eastern Caribbean region during the next few days. Weak and stable conditions will produce cloudy periods with some scattered showers over the northern and southern portions of the Les Antilles during the next 24 hours. Also, Saharan dust haze will continue to cause a reduction in visibility and air quality across the region during the forecast period. And this was the weather report as of 12 noon today, presented by Island Style Talent Bath.
This has been RCI's Weather News. For more information, call the Weather Hotline at 454-3452. RCI 101 number 1.
Make your home merry and bright with Island Style's massive Christmas sale. Our wide range of porcelain and ceramic tiles are on sale up to 50% off. And that's not all. Save up to 15% off. Bathrooms with bundle and save. The more you buy, the more you save. On gorgeous bathroom vanities, bathtubs, faucets, shower glass, toilets, and more. Plus, contractors and tilers are in for a treat with our special discounts on tiling tools and accessories. Sale on now at all locations: Castries, Rodney Bay, and Viewfort. Or call 450-452 or 453 Tile. It's time to deck the halls, deck the walls, or even deck the deck with huge Christmas savings only at Island Style.
And welcome back to the lunchroom here at Radio Caribbean International. Now, I think tomorrow is actually going to be St. Cecilia's Day, so advanced greetings to all musicians and lovers of music out there, as of course that is the day we mark celebrations for music and musicians. But let's take in a call at this time. First for the day, good afternoon and welcome to the lunchroom.
Mr. George.
How are you doing, sir?
Not too bad.
Wonderful. And what's on your plate?
You wasn't in yesterday?
No, we were out yesterday. Our apologies.
Yeah, because I switched to another station and I hear a lot of palaver was going on about pothole holding.
About potholes?
The government have for the harbor. And a lot of people was calling and said as if that's a very bad deal that St. Lucia, the government of St. Lucia, make, like they're giving away our harbor to pothole holding.
Global Pot Holdings, GPH.
Yes. Oh, yeah, Global Pot Holding.
Yes.
And, they said that's not a good deal, and the government haven't come out to explain to the people what's going on.
Well, you have to always have details because people will want to know the details. They'll want to know exactly what is, what's going on, how much money is being given up, what is the value of that money over what period of time. Even that, I think we're hearing so many different dates. I think the government has said it's a 30-year concession agreement. And of course, over that 30 years, there is a sharing of the head tax. Now, right now, I think that head tax is about $5 for every individual.
That come down.
For every cruise passenger that, not even necessarily comes ashore. I think once they come in.
Once they're on the boat.
Yes, once they're on the boat, you get a $5 head tax. I think plus another $1 or so for, I think there's an environmental, there's some charge, another charge, I think, which it goes to the Solid Waste Management Authority. And of course, so the new arrangement is, from what I understand, is that it's going to be, the majority of that money is now going to be, it's going to be collected by GPH, and then they will remit, I think, is it $1, I think, or $1.50, I think, in the first instance. And that varies over the period of time. So there's a sharing arrangement if it goes over a certain amount. So you see, all of those details, I think it would be useful.
So what's stopping the government from coming and tell the people what's going on?
Well, I think they've made certain statements, but they need to perhaps reinforce those statements, and so that people can understand it in a very clear manner.
To the people.
Precisely what the arrangement is, what is the value of that arrangement, how much money is GPH investing, because at the end of the day, it is.
They're talking about 45 million.
So GPH is coming in. They obviously want to make a profit.
Now, 45 million. The SPASPA was owing some 20 million. They will take that over and pay that credit. That SPASPA.
Right. So SPASPA had an existing loan for works that had been done at Point Seraphim Berth 1, which was, I believe, in connection with putting in some breasting dolphins so that you can allow for the larger vessels, the larger cruise vessels, to be able to come in into the harbor and to berth. Now, the thing about it is that every year, well, not every year, but every so often we're seeing that these vessels are becoming bigger and bigger. Now, it's getting to that point where I think they're sort of plateauing. So most of these vessels, at least in terms of the length that we're speaking about, so most of them right now, the very large ones, they're at about 360 60 meters, in length. And of course, they require a certain depth as well, so that they can come into the harbor safely. So you have to look at these issues in terms of whether dredging is necessary. Of course, the length of your berth becomes an issue. As the vessels become larger now, you also have to be thinking about your turning basin. Right, so there's a general demarcated area where these vessels have to turn. And of course, it becomes an issue of literally the amount of space that you actually have within that harbor. Now, in as much as our harbor, it's a very nice harbor, picturesque and all of that, it has its limitations in terms of the...
the length of those vessels now and the width of our wharf, so no boat won't able to turn.
So it becomes more difficult to...
Western Wharf and Point Seraphim.
Right. So right now, for instance, the turning basin is somewhere between that berth 1 and the and where you have the old banana shed, basically. So somewhere around there is really where those vessels are currently turning. But it's like I said, as these as you have a berth on one side and you have to have a setback and then the actual turning basin, so that becomes a bit of an issue too, in terms of the orientation of these vessels. And so even though, for instance, right now we have about 5 berths, 2 on the northern side at Point Seraphim, and then you've got on the Castries side, you have 3 berths, the Queen Elizabeth Dock, as well as the berth in front, the Western Wharf in front of Shed 6, and then the Banana, the Latok side. The length of these berths is, in many instances, is insufficient. So certainly the berth 2 at Point Seraphim, the Western Wharf, as well as the cargo, the one at Latok, at Banans, that's not sufficient for most of these vessels, the very large ones. And so really and truly, the only 2 berths that we can have that can handle these very large vessels, they're actually berth 1 at Point Seraphim, as well as the Queen Elizabeth Dock, or that's the Northern Wharf in front of La Place Carénage. So you then have to ask ourselves, well, okay, how are we then positioning our port to be able to handle what size and class of vessels, and how often will we be seeing those vessels as well? So there are a lot of different factors at play. We will never obviously be looking at the extent of traffic that is going into, say, a place like the Bahamas, Nassau. Nassau has, I believe, in the region of about, is it 7 berths at this point? And it is...
And in Nassau, but Nassau have so much island, because I think some, that same Golden Holding, they have their own island in Nassau, where they...
Well, so now they're in control. They've taken over the port of Nassau.
Yes.
So they actually, and they've made expansions to that, I think upwards of nearly $250 million US of investment there. They've also gone into Antigua, into St. John's, and they've added on, so they lengthened,
they lengthened that offer.
There were 4 berths existing, 2 finger piers, and they've added on another berth on the northern side of those piers. So they can now accommodate 5 vessels, fairly large vessels in St. John's right now, including this new berth that they created, which can handle the largest of the ships that are on the seas right now.
But Mr. George, what happened to the plan we had before, extending the Latok to the harbour mouth, which we could have probably pick up another 3 berths? Now,
you're very correct about that question, because I do think that should be looked at. I mean, I know there have been suggestions in some quarters that obviously to do that, you do have to look at the issue of the river itself.
Which river?
The Castries River.
The Martian River?
Yes, and the amount of silt and stuff that's coming down from that watershed. So you would have to do that project. I also believe you would have to tackle it in tandem with the issue of the river and ensuring that you have good traps to deal with the issue of siltation, because obviously the big problem that you're going to have
is the net you put in to pick up all the rubbish. You might get the brown water, but any rubbish, you could net it.
Well, maybe so. And so you certainly have to look at it in the context of anything being done on that southern side, on the Latok side, as you mentioned. But I think that's one option. I think they've also looked at potentially on the northern side, but then that would, of course, anything that you're doing on the northern side in the Gantas Bay, Point St. Victor side of the harbor, you would then have to definitely consider the likely closure of the airport.
We're looking on all that, but the government of St. Lucia already signed a contract with the company, and whatever they sign for, that's what will take place.
So from based on what we have been told thus far, the elements within the project include adding on an additional breasting dolphin on the existing berth 1. That's at the Point Seraphin side.
Yeah.
So there are 3 there already. They're going to add on an additional one. So a slightly longer vessel will then be able to berth at that berth. But it then means really
which way they going? They're going through the harbour to the harbour mouth, or
towards the west, towards the harbour mouth. Yes. So there's that one. They're supposed to do some improvement on the northern wharf. I think there's an issue of the alignment of the northern wharf, and so the suggestion is that they will make an improvement of that on the western end, sort of where the crane is, Blue Boy. Then there's the element of creating a promenade along the waterfront. Then there's the element of the vendors arcade, and so
but even the vendors, I heard that shop they're complaining a lot.
Ras Iper, yes.
Because he said that the vendors are going to lose on that contract a lot. Because Pothole Golden,
GPH,
they will have their own shop.
Well, I don't know of those details in terms of what shops they will and will not have. But I would imagine that they would probably want to have some means of gaining on the commercial side, on the commercial retail side. I wouldn't be too surprised in that regard. But as to where those shops are going to be, and I mean, you certainly do need significant investment in terms of uplifting the city of Castries.
Yeah, but such a big project is not a lot of space they have to explore.
No, and that's a very important point too, caller, that you're making, because you really don't have a lot of space that they're dealing with in between that northern wharf section, which is where the vendors arcade is, and La Place Carenage, and then where you used to have some of those cargo sheds on the northern wharf. There's not really that much space. Now, remember, for a long time, the proposal was really to, as you had been mentioning, look at converting all of the port into a dedicated cruise port, right? So
Yeah.
it would have meant then that you would have had to have relocated the cargo facilities to another location. For a very long time had been touted was the idea of relocating it to cul-de-sac. I also feel that there could very well be a consideration for VA4 because you already have the port there and the land and everything, and it could easily be expanded. But whatever the case may be in terms of the logistics and the feasibility, that would have to be worked out. And then you would certainly free up some more land for the commercial side of things. Although it's not really that much more land that you're gaining, only about 8 acres.
The money that I hear, the kind of work you're talking there, and the money that I heard they bargaining for, 40 million is not much money today.
Well, it doesn't sound like very much.
Something.
If in fact it is 40 million, then that's not a very large investment outlay.
That's not a big investment, not at all.
And so again, I mean, it would have to be. We would have to get a sense as to what is the extent of it, what that 40 million represents. Is that 40 million new investment?
I think that it's 45 million, and you have to go to the Soufriere Harbor as well.
Yes, so there is that element in Soufriere which is has been proposed, and I think in the case of Soufriere, the target really is the smaller vessels. So you're talking about the smaller cruise vessels.
Smaller one will go
so like your trade winds and the other small vessels, the luxury lines that are coming in. Maybe just about 1,000, 1,500 passengers or thereabouts. And they would really be they would be creating a tender port so that these vessels will put down their tenders and people go across in that way. So it would then have perhaps a more direct economic spin for people in Soufriere. Of course, the beautification of the waterfront would have to come in. You would have to look at the issue of that in the context of Quelas as well. And I think there's looking at the whole issue of, developing a beach area, possibly maybe at Malgré-Tout, for that.
Wrong Marguerite already have a beach in there.
Well, exactly. There's a beach there, the Malgré-Tout beach. So a lot of those issues would have to look in. And of course, the other thing about it is that you have to look at how you can develop tours and attractions. And that's really where there's the value added, the opportunity for everybody to be able to earn something out of this. And of course, in terms of the shops too, I guess some duty-free opportunities as well in the Soufriere area. So I don't know precisely how they're going to plan on dealing with the expansion in the Soufriere area, because the other issue too, of course, is space. And you would have to look at
sign and deliver. That means we giving the pothole golden
Global Port Holdings, yes.
For something like 40 years.
I believe it's 30 years.
30 years.
I believe that the way it was stated was it was 30 years, and they can probably get an extension or something to that effect.
Well, that is the same deal we had with the airport, Mr. George. Right.
So the airport PPP, the public-private partnership in the airport, was a 30-year concession agreement, and that length of time is somewhat, what a lot of these companies would be looking for, to be able to ensure that they can recoup pay back their investment as well as being able to.
Yeah, but with the airport PPP, we would get some money back from them. But are we getting any money with the harbor?
Yes, there's a profit sharing arrangement with the harbor.
Yeah.
But again, like I said, the precise amounts that has to, I would expect that the GPH and the the various government agencies involved should be coming out to say exactly what is the schedule in terms of the profit arrangement, as to how much we'll be making in the first year and second, and or all up to the final year. Because that is, before you do an agreement like that, you would have to do that economic feasibility to see what is the likely return to the state versus the return to the private entity of GPH in this instance. So
And
it is.
employment, would it bring a lot of employment to St. Lucia?
Well, I mean, the important thing is that if you're having an investment, and if that investment is geared towards increasing your capacity to handle more cruise lines, and hopefully that would mean that you would have greater numbers coming in, greater throughput of passengers. It should mean that you should see an expansion of the very same sectors that are feeding into that sector. So, I mean, yes, you should see an increase in employment. I don't know what the figures they've been working with are. So there'll be some direct construction employment. But in addition to that, there should be some sustainable long-term increase in the numbers in terms of persons who are selling, providing services, supporting the ships. I mean, friends, one of the things that we've been speaking about for a very long time is how do you keep the ships in for longer? How are you attracting vessels to do home porting?
Those ships there,
Now,
they have a schedule.
well, they do have schedules, but some of them are
And
actually
the schedule,
staying.
if it's 7 days, and at that 7 days they sail, and it's Antigua they reach for the 7 days, they're going back, they're not coming to St. Lucia.
Right,
They
but
will
especially
have to extend the time.
especially with the European cruise lines like P&O. When I say European, but those that are targeting European markets, I should say, like P&O as well as TUI and others, they are looking to home port in the Caribbean.
Yeah.
And so Barbados has been benefiting in terms of that,
Well,
and we
Rifford-
certainly are doing some of it.
That's where we have to think of Rifford as well.
Well, the conversation about Viewport is also there. I mean, it need not. Right now there is some level of home porting that's already going on with the Port of Castries and P&O. I believe you can actually fly in and you can start your cruise right here. So the question is, can that be expanded in terms of the provisioning, the supporting services, the hotel stock that you need to do so? I mean, right now, for instance, there's a 100+ key hotel going up in the Point Seraphin area. There's lots of potential in that area as well for increasing of the room stock. So there's potential for a lot of spin-offs that could, likely lead to greater job creation, greater spread of wealth. But like I said, we do hope that we can get a bit more of the details in terms of the timelines as to where those things are going to go.
You gave the St. Lucian a lot more than the government have. Because right now they're listening. Those that listening, they learn a lot more than the government gave them.
Well, I suppose the government and the various agencies, they need to come out and do a bit more on the press side, because of course we know the nature of these types of investments. They will always be emotive. They will always have and this is where I think the transparency issue is so important. There was a lot of, if we go back to the airport, for instance, there was a lot of work that had been done in terms of stakeholder engagement, in terms of defining what the project need, what is the need. And in a project, in any situation like that, you have to define what is needed. And one of the things that was very instrumental in what was done in the case of the airport is that the IFC, International Finance Corporation, brought in a third-party airport planner and determined what was needed over that period of time, right? Based on the projections, based on the numbers, based on where the island wanted to go, all right? And to determine, well, what is the scale of investment that is required? And that has to be costed out. So, for instance, they were able to tell you over that 30-year period, you were requiring somewhere around 260 million US dollars worth of investment. And then you say, well, how do you phase out that investment over that 30-year period? What do you have to do up front? What do you have to do in terms of maintenance over that period? What do you have to do in terms of expansion during that same time, right? So as to accommodate what is necessary. And then, based on that, you then go out to tender, to open out, to get a proposal or proposals from various interested parties.
Well, Mr. George, we are not the first, and we are in CARICOM, and they would do the same work in Jamaica. So we could get a lot of information, how things going, how, you know.
So what that does is that you know what you need, and people are proposing based on your needs, right? And I think that is the right way to approach these kinds of projects. We have to be careful too, because quite often, sometimes third parties will come and they'll tell you, well, this is what we want to do, and this is, but it's really good to get a sort of an independent assessment as to say, hey, this is what you actually want. Because there are a number of elements. There actually are a number of elements with respect to the port that need to be addressed. And a lot of them are not really dealing with the port directly. They're dealing with the overall urban environment that is Castries, all right, and the experience that people have, whether they are involved directly in terms of the cruise sector or whether they're in some other sector. Because guess what? When you got 6,000 people coming off a vessel, or 12,000, if you got a number of vessels in, you got a lot of people. A lot of them have to be moved.
You have to improve Castries as well. Most of the work need to be done in Castries. Get the people out of the pavement, because Castries is jam-packed.
Right, so you have to look at the overall urban fabric and see what the elements are. I mean, one of the problems that had been identified for a very long time regarding this thing has been the issue of wastewater, right, and the issue of the sewage. So that also is an outstanding matter. Somebody's going to have to find the money to do it. The state is going to, whether it's the state, whether it's Wasco, whether it's a private enterprise.
If that contract that coming in, they had to bill Rasco out by 20 million. Where the heck Rasco will get money to do it and all these things?
Well, yeah. But so a lot of players have to get involved. But caller, we're going to have to end it here though for the time being, because we're already out of time. Thanks very much for that call, and have a good one. And of course, we'll be back again tomorrow, God willing, for another program of The Lunchroom. Hope you can join us for that. I'm your host, Alex George Jr., saying goodbye.